So, Lynn, go ahead and.
Give me a minute, and I'll start.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Are we ready to start the meeting?
Okay. At this time, I'm going to call the special meeting of the Board of Appeals and Taxation to order. Please rise and join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to call the roll before we get started on new business. Michelle Lalvin,
Present.
Joe Napick,
Here.
Steve Grelnick,
Present.
John Boyko, present. John Belden,
Here.
Jay Quinn.
Here.
Okay, this takes us to item number 4, new business. 4A is a request from Parks and Recreation to transfer $5,000 regular payroll to overtime pay. I'll entertain a motion to that effect. I'll make the
I
motion.
entertain the motion that we go with under new business request from the Parks and Rec Department to transfer $5,000 from the regular payroll to overtime pay.
Yeah, it would just be appropriate to say so moved. I'll read the motion for you, so it'll be a little bit easier.
Roger that.
Okay, we have a motion by Quinn, second by Boyko, discussion. Ronnie Herrick is here in the audience at City Hall.
Okay. Can I ask a question, Mr. Herrick?
Certainly.
This is Michelle Laubin. I'm seeing that in your memo of explanation that the reason for the transfer is that typically the work would have been done by outside contractors, and you're indicating that this year it was done by in-house staff. Is that correct?
Correct. That along with, correct. That along with some recent winter storms.
Okay. Is there a reason why it was done by in-house staff this year as opposed to the contractors that you usually use?
Yes, I'll answer that because I directed Mr. Herrick to do it this way because of the pandemic, and we weren't going to take on any additional personnel during the pandemic until we knew what the effects of contamination to anybody, or infection, I should say, to anybody was. So we can control our in-house staff better than we can control private contractors.
Okay. Do we expect that to continue?
It varies from year to year depending on what our needs are. I would expect that once we get into the grass growing months that we'll bring some private contractors back on board with us.
Okay. And is there any issue in terms of you're taking the money from regular payroll? Is that going to leave you with sufficient funds in regular payroll to get through the rest of the year?
Yes, that will leave sufficient. Ron, please identify yourself.
Ron Herrick again, Parks and Recreation Director. Yes, we'll have sufficient funds, regular payroll.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Are there any opposed? Hearing none opposed, the motion passes unanimously. Takes us to item number 4B, is the request from building maintenance to transfer $1,500 from building maintenance to tools. Chris Patusik is on the line. If there are any questions, I'll entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Motion is made by Quinn. Is there a second? Second.
Second.
Seconded by Boyko. Discussion.
Mr. Patusek, Michelle Laubin, can you just let us know what the reason was for the overage in this account?
Chris Patusek here. Due to the, COVID circumstances, I've had to keep the guys separated for working purposes, and I needed more tools. Usually we share stuff, and just to keep them safe and separate, I had to buy extra tools this year for them.
Okay, thank you.
Well, that would qualify, right? Should make note of that. Are there any other questions? Hearing no other questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Are there any opposed? Are there any opposed? Hearing none opposed, the motion carries. Item number 4C is the request from the fire department to transfer $5,000 from professional services to Stormwatch and transfer $10,000 from training to Stormwatch. I'll entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Motion is made by Quinn. Is there a second? Second. By Boyko. Discussion.
Yes,
Just wanted
Joe
to-
Napick has a question here. Part of this money is in anticipation, underline that word, for events to occur. What is that anticipation based on?
Fran Jones, Chief. I could answer that. So we had a large fire on Canal Street at the beginning of the budget year that we had fire watch personnel for about a week there. Then we had a tropical storm in, I believe, late August. And then we've had two major winter storms in December and February, which depleted our Stormwatch account. And it's a combined account, Firewatch and Stormwatch. So it depleted our account. And we have 5 more months to go. I don't know what the future will bring. Hopefully a nice calm spring and no fires. But I wanted to have a little bit extra after the accounts are paid out, because we have a shortfall currently for a buffer zone going forward.
Yes, so the anticipation is for what might occur during those 5 months.
Correct. Yeah, it's
Okay.
when all said and done, it would be about 5,000 left over in the account if we don't have any significant events.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Hiller, this is Michelle Laubin. We had exchanged an email just prior to the start of this meeting, and you had indicated that you did not sign the attestation at the bottom of this request, but you were prepared to make that representation at tonight's meeting. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mrs. Laubin. Funds are available within the 2 accounts that are listed.
Okay, so are you signing the form
I will sign
tonight?
the official document, yes.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
I will sign the official document, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Be on record.
Are there any other questions?
Chief Jones, this is Michelle Laubin. I just have a question for you. There's an account that is overdrawn for out-of-pocket reimbursement that hasn't been addressed, and it's not addressed in your request.
This evening, excuse me, it's not on the agenda this evening. We're not taking that up.
Well, I'm asking why it's not included in the interdepartment budget transfer that's in front of us.
You can feel free to send him an email later on today.
Well,
Yeah.
I have, with all due respect, Mr. Mayor, I have sent that email. It was sent back in November, and I did not receive a response.
Okay, so then he'll follow up with a response to you on Monday. He'll be directed.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Are there any opposed? Hearing none opposed, the motion carries. This takes us to item number 4D, is the request from the animal shelter to transfer $15,000 from part-time payroll to full-time payroll, and to transfer $1,000 from part-time payroll to overtime pay, and to transfer $1,000 from food and bedding supplies to kennel supplies.
So moved.
Motion is made by Quinn. Is there a second?
Second,
Seconded by whom?
John Belden.
John Belton seconds. Okay, discussion. Leon Sylvester is here to answer questions.
Yes, I have a
Again,
question of
yes,
Mr. Sylvester, and that question is, salaries are normally laid out for a year. They're projected for a year. Why, in the interim, is $15,000 for Mr. Sylvester's salary being requested? It seems a bit confusing to me.
Okay, I can answer that because I authorized that. This is Mark Loretti. We did an evaluation on his work performance and the number of time that he has been committing to the job. It was agreed upon that he was working many hours overtime because, as you may know, we now take on Derby's animal control needs, and until we can make adjustments with more staffing to his department, he got an increase in pay. And that was actually during the pandemic, and I'll let Leon speak to the activity that was probably much more robust because of the pandemic. Yeah.
Well, I have a positive view developed over past years over the performance of animal control and Mr. Sylvester's efforts in this regard. So I would be inclined to support this request for funds.
Would you like me? I mean, I'd be happy to discuss what we've kind of gone through, in the course of the pandemic. I mean, that's kind of been added to the responsibility of animal control, if anybody.
I would like to hear about that. I do just want to note that, again, this is another request that was not signed off on by Mr. Hiller. So I think for the record, we need to have Mr. Hiller indicate that, in fact, the accounts have been reviewed and the funds exist as represented.
So noted.
That is correct, Mr.
Paul? So noted. Leon,
Thank you.
go ahead. Continue.
Sure. So, during the pandemic especially, I mean, one of the things I don't know if you're all aware, I was documented as a 35-hour employee weekly. I work, feel free to check for the last 5 years. If I go under 45 a week, that's a good week. And sometimes during the pandemic, I was working 60 to 70 hours a week. We've had multiple deaths of hoarders. One this past week with 29 dogs inside the house. I also have another hoarding situation with 72 cats in one room of a house on Huntington Street. These things, a lot of times, I don't know if you ever dealt with hoarders, but they're not easy people to deal with. Their families are not easy to deal with. These conditions are unsanitary. I mean, I've had staff coming in all hours of the night, including myself, which technically isn't in my job description, but I wouldn't leave my staff to do that kind of thing. So there's been, we've literally handled multiple COVID deaths, been in the homes before the coroners, getting the animals out so the coroners can take these things out. These are things that are added to our day-to-day. Then you throw in evictions, people just leaving animals behind. Our increased activity is over 500% already this past year with COVID. So we're working pretty much 24/7 down there. So if there's any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Now, with that said, with the up-and-coming budget presentation that will be in the next month and a half, there will be some changes made to the animal control budget as well. So I say that for the record so that you understand that that's coming and why it's coming. Are there any other questions?
That's helpful. Are we going to run into any issues with the part-time employee budget being depleted?
Not at this point. I made sure that the mayor and I have been in discussions about bringing additional people on. The staff I have been with me for a long time. Have done a great job. So during this, instead of trying to kind of train a new person in the middle of this until we get which we're getting close to a kind of a step back period where we could bring somebody on. But in the meantime, the overtime, with my current staff and just me working, again, with that additional, basically what they did is increase me to 40 hours from 35 a week. And that's the increase in pay. The two combined, we've been able to manage it until the upcoming budget.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sylvester.
No problem. Anything else?
Okay, hearing no other discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Are there any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Okay, this takes us to item number 4E, the request from Management Information Systems to transfer $586 from Comp Data Processing Tax Collector to Comp Data Processing Accounting. Lynn, do you want to speak to that?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry, the motion is made by Quinn. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by John Boyko. Are there any questions?
I'm sorry, is somebody going to speak to it says price increase on monthly fee for accounting software. I think that's what it says.
That's correct.
That's what it says.
Okay, can you just elaborate on what that means? Is this an unanticipated increase? Is it a piece of software that's necessary for your job performance?
We have received an increase from our supplier who we've been with for roughly 20 years. We didn't anticipate the increase we have, but changing suppliers would be far, far more expensive than staying where we are.
And are you anticipating staying with this provider going forward?
Yes, we are.
But it's always subject to change. Are there any other questions?
No. Thank you.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Are there any opposed? Hearing none opposed, the motion carries. Item number 4F, a request from Highways and Bridges to transfer $15,000 from police tires to police parts. I'll entertain a
So
motion.
moved, Mr. Mayor.
Motion is made by Quinn. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Boyko. Discussion.
This is a common transaction that has occurred in the past and has been accepted in the past and has been discussed in the past. So I guess a positive vote on it is warranted.
Is there any more discussion? Is there any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Are there any opposed? None opposed, the motion carries unanimously. At this time, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I thought we were going to discuss a schedule for the budget hearings this spring.
A schedule hasn't been developed yet. So I anticipated that Paul Hiller and I and Jay Quinn will discuss a proposed schedule and send it off to the board members.
Okay, I would appreciate it if in developing the schedule that we as the board members could be consulted as to our availability for those hearing dates.
Well, you're certainly free to correspond directly with the finance director about what your availability is, and I would suggest you do that sooner rather than later before we start talking about a schedule.
Okay, well, in the past, we've been very collaborative in our efforts to develop a schedule that works for everybody, so I would hope that that would be repeated.
Okay. Are there any?
And it certainly will.
There's a motion for adjournment. If we have a motion in a second? I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sounds like the motion carries. Have a nice weekend.